all pain is real. The pain you're experiencing now is absolutely real. It's showing up in your brain. It is changing your nervous system. It's making you have more increased heart rate, increased respiratory rate. All of those things are very, very real, but that you do have control over this. You do have an ability to understand it, put it where it needs to be in your life, being able to even observe it and say, that I understand that that's happening to me right now. But I also know that I have been without pain in my life. I'm going to get back to that if I can deal with what's happening right now.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Integrative Women's Health Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Jessica Drummond, founder and CEO of the Integrative Women's Health Institute. And I can't wait for you to meet Sally Brown. She and her colleague are the founders of Women in Harmony. And we're going to dive right into talking about how pain neuroscience, and we talk about this a lot around here, can really be an important tool for supporting women in perimenopause who are struggling with pain or who are struggling with chronic pain, and then make that transition into perimenopause. So, Sally, what got you interested in going deeper in your learning around pain neuroscience and then applying it to your clients as an occupational therapist?
Yeah. So I've been an occupational therapist for 30 years. So, as therapists, we deal with patients in pain all the time. So trying to find ways to help people feel empowered with their pain. It's really interesting to me. So I've seen people who, tend to be athletes who, pain has been part of their life just because you never get to do any, never excel at any skill as an athlete unless you're experiencing some pain. And you realize that the pain is going to go away. And then there's different patients who maybe haven't been as athletic in their lifetimes, and they feel like they get controlled by pain, that it's now changing them. And you can see it when they come and sit in front of you and talk about their new life experiences and what's going on when they're trying to sleep or when they're trying to function as a mom or function at work. And you just see the difference between the two types of people. And that's where Stanford had come in and done a lot of research around pain neuroscience education. And I had learned about this certification for something called Empowered Relief. So I took that certification, and they had gotten funding from the National Institute of Health to focus on pain neuroscience education because of what's going on in our country with opioids. So, we believed as a society, for the most part, that if I give you a pill, that's going to control your pain. And that's the only way you can do it. There's no other way. And you and I both know, gosh, there's 6 million ways we can work on pain. We've got ice, we've got heat, we've got exercise, we've got all these other ways of dealing with pain. And then with pain neuroscience education came into play that your mind has a lot to say about how you're going to experience pain. So just like when I was talking about those two different patients, the one patient feels that, I have control over pain. I know that pain will end. I know that this isn't going to control my life. And, pain is a natural experience that is not threatening to us all the time. We can control it. And then there's a different patient who that's not the way that pain has showed up in their life. And, this is now something that's life-changing and it's never going to go away. And I'm going to catastrophize it. And I'm going to let it run my life instead of me having some control over it. And that's the neat thing about the pain neuroscience education, is that it's just about teaching people that their brain has a lot to do with the way that the pain is showing up in their life. We're talking about pain, but pain shows up as stress. And pain shows up as lack of sleep. And those are big things in menopause, right? Stress and lack of sleep are such contributors. And if you can control your pain, you're going to be able to control your stress and be able to control your sleep better as well. So we've got a lot of things that we can do, like we're talking about. So
yeah, absolutely. So essentially in your practice, you were seeing that there was a subcategory of your patients who, while they may have pain, they had a more relaxed relationship with it. Like, I'm an athlete, I've had pain before. I know this, I have some trust, some confidence that this pain will settle, will not be worse, will not be here forever, may completely go away. It wasn't such a fear. There was less fear around pain. And then other people who maybe had experienced less pain in their life, but now had a confusing diagnosis. Maybe the pain sort of felt like it came out of nowhere, or they had a major injury or a major illness. And now their perspective is that, oh no, there's a lot of fear around this pain is happening to me in a way that there's no way that it's ever going to get much better. So you thought, well, let me get more tools around how we can rewire that nervous system's response to pain. And what are some of the most valuable of those tools that help people make that pretty big mindset leap if they, they're 50, right? And now they're in perimenopause, they're stressed, they have an illness, they have an injury, they're having sleep issues anyway because their progesterone is dropping. And it's like, I've never had this before. And now, like, am I going to have this the rest of my life? It could be really scary.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then, once you're scared, your blood pressure is going up, you're not going to be able to sleep. So it becomes this big cycle of pain, right? We've seen that in our practices where, pain leads to weakness, which leads to more pain, which leads to stiffness and, less sleep. And so everything becomes, cyclical. And then the patients are like, oh gosh, this has really changed my life a ton. And so, maybe they've had some pelvic floor issues or something like that that's really changed the way, pain is showing up in their life. And it becomes something daily, something where like, is this ever going to end? Like you just said, like that I'm now catastrophizing this in my head and I'm saying, wow, this is my new normal. I don't like any of this. This is absolutely terrible. So some ways that they can deal with that is, I don't know if you've heard of binaural beats.
Yes, but go ahead and explain it.
Okay, sure. Yeah. So binaural beats is one way that you can take control of your nervous system. So by listening to some calming meditative apps, Stanford has one very specific one that's through Empowered Relief, which is what Charla and I teach. We give everybody this audio file afterwards. And so with binaural beats, the sound waves go in one ear and then in the other ear, and they basically help you learn how to calm yourself. And so you can sleep better, so you can have less pain, so you can, deal with all of this new normal situation going on. So Stanford's research also showed that it was a pretty neat study. So let's pretend there's 3 groups of people in a room, and we've got one group of people over here are going to have some surgery, and we're going to put some headphones on them before they have the surgery, and they are going to listen to the binaural beats. And then we've got a second group of people who are going to have surgery as well, but instead of listening to binaural beats, we're going to have them listen to some music. Okay. And then the third group of people, we put the headphones on them, but we don't have any audio file at all. There's nothing happening. And so they found out that, the people who were listening to the binaural beats actually required less anesthesia.
Wow.
It's really exciting. So there are several hospitals across the country who are now starting to use this prior to surgery and or are requiring patients to go to the Empowered Relief before they have surgery. So anyway, for those of people who are listening to us, during anesthesia, your anesthesiologist doesn't leave the room once he puts you under. He's monitoring your heart rate and your respiratory rate because that shows how much stress you're under or how much pain you're feeling. So for those people who are listening to the binaural beats, they required less surgery because their heart rate stayed lower and their respiratory rate stayed lower. So that's how they know, that it was working. So it's a really neat thing. I'm super excited about being able to offer that to my patients because it's easy. You don't have to
Yeah.
learn anything new. You just put it on. I have these new sleep aid headphones that I can actually put on when I use this myself. So just I put them on and they're soft and I can sleep with them. So if
Mm,
I'm getting ready for bed and I'm feeling like, gosh, I don't know if I'm ready, I just not quite sure if I can sleep tonight. All of us have experienced changes in our sleep, and I'll put that on and it really helps me just get relaxed and then I can easily fall asleep. So, it's not just for pain, it is for stress and for sleeping as well. So that's one thing that is super interesting about the empowered relief and being able to give them a tool right away. Other ways of helping people understand this is talking about how does pain show up in your body? Like,
mhm.
you and I both know because we went to school for this, oh, you have a spinal cord and then your brain has processed the pain. If your hand experiences pain, it doesn't really mean that your hand is experiencing pain. Your brain is understanding that your hand is experiencing pain. And we know this because people who have had amputees, they still experience pain. So you don't even need your limb to experience
Right.
pain. Your brain is what's processing it. So talking to them about, oh, okay, so if I can calm myself in a way, maybe some deep breaths, just getting the respiratory rate under control, then I can then distract my brain or essentially calm my brain so that my pain isn't showing up in such a huge way that I can't function afterwards. And I'm saying, oh gosh, now I can't do anything because I'm having pain. It's like, well, if we can calm ourselves, self-soothing things as well. So maybe you like to take baths. Maybe that's something that if I go take a bath, oh my gosh, I'm so calm afterwards. And then I can, deal with whatever pain is happening or whatever stress is happening. So helping them to come up with a personalized plan of what makes sense for them in their life. So if you're at work, you obviously can't take a bath. That's not going to
Sure,
work very
sure.
well.
Yeah.
But maybe you love tea. Maybe you just need to take a break and go make yourself some tea. So having a list of things that they can look at. So if they're feeling stressed or if they're feeling pain, they can just pull that list out and go, okay, all right, I made this list before. Because when we're stressed, we're not very good problem solvers, right? So if you've already got your list made for you, then you can, then figure it out. So those are some of the ways that, you can kind of deal with pain.
Well, and I think this is so empowering because when we better understand pain, that while obviously there's some relationship to tissue damage or circulatory damage or organ damage sometimes in a localized area, the nervous system is not always very accurate at pinpointing that localized area, at pinpointing even actual tissue damage. So there could be tissue damage, there might not be, there could be an illness, there could be, an infection in that area, but not always. So once people, I think, are educated in that way, it's very empowering because that's not something you might learn in seventh grade biology, right? Like it's more like if you have pain, it's because you injured your hand or your brain or your hip or whatever. And so now understanding that sometimes pain takes some of those external information, but often the nervous system actually puts the pieces together and creates a message of pain that may or may not be very precise. And so
Absolutely.
once they know that, there's sort of a sense of calm, like, oh, this is real pain. Because I think the biggest pitfall of this kind of work is the struggle with not saying to people, your pain is quote unquote all in your head, but reminding or educating them that it actually is at some level being at least partially generated by the nervous system. How do you toe that line so that people don't get frustrated or defensive?
Yeah, we absolutely talk about that, pain is real. All pain is real. The pain you're experiencing now is absolutely real. It's showing up in your brain. It is, changing your nervous system. It's making you have, more increased heart rate, your increased respiratory rate. All of those things are very, very real. And so, reassuring them also that they're not alone. Like they're not the first person that this has happened to. And there's actually a whole group of, across the country of, people just experiencing pain. I mean, I don't think anybody gets out of here without experiencing some kind of pain. We're all going to, stub our toe and so on. But that you do, like you said, have control over this. You do have an ability to understand it, put it where it needs to be in your life, and being able to even observe it and say, that I understand that that's happening to me right now, but I also know that I have been without pain in my life, and I'm going to get back to that if I can deal with what's happening right now. So even if I can cut my pain in half, I can accomplish more, and then I can celebrate with myself. Okay, you know what? I haven't been able to wear, tight pants because my abdomen has been really, painful from my fibroids or what have you. But, I was able to wear these pants that I haven't worn in a while today, and I couldn't wear them all day, but I wore them part of the day. So small celebrations, and trying to just think about, instead of, I'm sure, as a PT, you think about this all the time too, where, okay, so your end goal is to go back to the gym to be a Olympic power lifter. Well, getting back to the gym with chronic pain is maybe not a goal today, but maybe you can do a walk down the street, and, just being able to get some endorphins going, and then, trying to not disappoint people who have, big goals for themselves, because we really want to live with, okay, that is your goal. We're going to get there, but we have to break it down into small, kind of manageable bites. And then doing the same thing with pain, and talking about, okay, we're not going to cure your pain today. We're not going to, make this all go away, but we're going to give you some control over what's happening, so that, you're not feeling like this is all I have anymore is pain.
Yeah. So really holding that space for possibility that, this pain could experience some temporary completely relief today, or a downtick in intensity, or it might move a little bit. And I love how you bring in that other things are going to impact the intensity and maybe the length of time that people are managing pain. And those include sleep and their generalized stressors, their generalized stress response. So we have binaural beats. We have this wisdom that pain can, at least at some level, be generated from the nervous system, even if it's taking into account some of the external signaling, which helps us to gain some empowered beliefs around pain, that it can be modulated by things that we do. We don't just necessarily need or even things that we think, or how we tense our muscles, or how we relax, versus, needing medication or surgery in every case. What are some of the other tools that you might use to help people shift out of that kind of upregulated, stressed nervous system, especially if they've been in pain for a really long time, to the level where it's almost maybe part of their identity?
Yeah. So back to the nervous system being the respiratory rate as well as your heart rate. So we can control those. We can't, can't say to you, Jessica, hey, go ahead and lower your heart rate. But you can do that by deep breathing. So even I think you've talked about this, when I took your classes, boxed breathing. So an inhale, an exhale, an inhale, and an exhale. And just even taking a minute, just sit down and breathe deep, inhale and exhale, and inhale and exhale, and maybe saying even a mantra to yourself, like, in this moment, I'm okay. In this moment, I'm okay, while you're doing the deep breathing. So that allows you to then control your respiratory rate and your heart rate. And so when those come down, you're going to automatically experience pain in a different way. So you're going to take the edge off the pain just by doing a little deep breathing, because when you have an increased respiratory rate or you have an increased heart rate, pain is going to be elevated, and it's going to show up in your muscles and your tension and the tightness, like you were just mentioning.
Yeah. And I love these tools, the slow, deep breathing, the binaural beats, the just awareness of how pain is experienced and how that can vary. But I think this is also so valuable because let's imagine someone actually has an injury or illness that's in the moment also driving the pain, whether it's cancer or endometriosis or a major automobile accident or something like that. So they have pain driven from a particular driver within the periphery, not just in the brain. Because we have this data from people undergoing surgery who are clearly being cut, right? I always say, surgery is kind of a knife fight. You were just asleep for it. So,
That's good.
So and now we have these tools to visualize people's heart rate, respiratory rate. And so as those physiologic responses are able to be modulated by the nervous system, even when there is cancer, endometriosis, broken leg, whatever, fibroids related pain, this stuff still works.
With Stanford's research, with Empowered Relief, they were able to compare it to 8 weeks of cognitive behavioral therapy. So we all know that cognitive behavioral therapy has been super successful in helping people deal with chronic pain. So, and how it shows up in their lives. So this same, they wanted to compress this because not everybody in the middle of, Kansas has access to go get cognitive behavioral therapy, which is twice a week for 8 weeks. So 16 times you're going back and forth. And maybe there's nobody even nearby that you can even access. And so this was a portable way of being able to get it to them. And it's a one-time 2-hour session that anybody across the country can access. So, if this pain is showing up in your life because you've got cancer or you've got, back to endometriosis that's really just disturbing you in a horrific way, you can do something about it with, again, with the Empowered Relief and being able to take some control.
Since you work primarily with women in perimenopause to menopause transition, what are some of the things you're seeing in relationship to pain that are unique to this time in life?
Yeah, I think for a lot of my patients, it's showing up affecting their sleep. So, they get so stressed during the day from the pain or from something happening, even the vasomotor symptoms. I'm uncomfortable having vasomotor symptoms, right? So we're going to call that pain because it's making me uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And so even though, it's something different than pain, it's related to, vasoconstriction. It's showing up as uncomfortableness. So, I get stressed from that and then I can't sleep. And then it becomes back to this vicious cycle. So now maybe I've got 5 hours of sleep a night and I know I'm supposed to get 7. And so that's very distressing to me too. And so I'm showing up at work tired and then it becomes all over again. I go back upstairs to get, watch some television. And then, oh my gosh, it's already 9:00. I'm supposed to be getting ready to go to sleep and I'm wide awake. What is happening to me? So then I'm going to go lay down in bed and then bed becomes something terrible because now the bed is the enemy. I don't want to lay down in bed. So now I'm kind of coming up with this whole scenario in my head of, gosh, this is absolutely terrible. Now I'm laying in bed, a wide awake. I don't want to be here. If I toss and turn, I might bother my spouse. So now all of these negative thoughts have come up to me. And so, back to this vicious cycle of uncomfortableness or pain and lack of sleep. And so that's how most people are showing up for me is just that it's adding all up and it's causing them mental anguish because they aren't who they used to be. And that was why we came up with harmony, because we wanted people to be able to feel like, this is a true me. This is where I was when I was, 6-year-old girl running around and being able to do what I want to do and sleeping well after, having a fun day. And that was what we were coming up with why we said harmony.
I really like that. What I love about these techniques is they're so additive. As you're sleeping a little better, you can navigate stress better. And with that root of the work that you're doing, kind of reconnecting people back to the essence of themselves. Do you remember it feeling like when you're a little kid and it's summertime and you're running around all day and then you just climb into bed and fall asleep and you wake up and you may have a tussle, you might fall down, you might have a rough day, but you were able to move through it because there wasn't all these other layers of stress. By the time midlife women, in our 40s and 50s, we're dealing with issues with children, with work, with aging parents, with just the day-to-day stressors of having access to social media and chronic news. I like to call it chronic news.
Yes, that's true.
And so we don't have that luxury of like the 6-year-old clear brain to just fall into bed and go right to sleep.
Yes, absolutely. But everything changed, right? We're just there's so much going on. You're taking care of your kids, you're taking care of your parents, you're taking care of the bills, you still have to work. It's a lot. Just even not menopause, just getting, that time of where we're sandwich generation, right? We're taking care of the people above us and the people below us as our generations come together and trying to raise, good humans and in this environment of chronic news.
Right.
Yeah, it's very stressful.
Well, and so any one of these techniques can kind of, if you think of all those things as kind of stacked on top of midlife women's shoulders, any one of these techniques can let it drift away a little, because how we react and respond to those stressors also will impact our symptoms, our insomnia, our vasomotor symptoms. So if it all feels overwhelming, just the deep breathing or just the binaural beats or any of the other tools in the Pain Neuroscience toolkit, the 528 hertz music, things that are free, readily available, nature exposure for a few minutes, mindfulness, breaks that cycle of being like, this is terrible and this is terrible and this is so difficult. And so I like that these tools are all so simple.
Yeah, and they're all about self-care, right? We mention that word a lot out there in communities when we're talking about self-care. This is true self-care. That you don't have to go to get a manicure. You don't have to go and get a massage. These are things that you can do that may take 5 minutes. If you dedicate yourself, especially you do it additively. So you say, okay, I'm going to commit to myself. I'm going to commit to taking care of myself. And so every day at lunch, I'm going to go outside and I'm going to walk in nature, like you mentioned, or every day I'm going to listen to those binaural beats, because you can't do self-care when you're in the middle of a crisis. It's too late. You need to do it additively. You need to say, you know what, I need to do something every day to calm my nervous system so that when stress does show up, because it's gonna, we're, here instead of starting from here. And I love Adrienne Lowe talks about that if we're starting from a position of where we're just barely managing our stress, if something else shows up, we're going to, it's going to be here. But if we can take our stress level down or pain level down or manage our sleep or manage our vasomotor symptoms, and we're starting from here on a daily basis, when things show up, it's not going to, be so horrible to us. It's going to be like, that's okay. I can handle that. That is one more thing. All right, maybe I'm here, but I'm certainly not back up here, which is, again, you have to manage it daily or it's going to just add up.
Absolutely. And so I think that recommendation essentially of daily practice, even the days you feel less stress, even the days you feel less pain or no pain at all, those are the days to practice, 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 because the lower that heart rate is, the higher the heart rate variability, the lower the breath, the respiratory rate on your resting days, then it's less rattled on the more stressful days or moments.
Absolutely. That's what Stanford, again, back to its research, talked about
Mhm.
that if you are just waiting until you are stressed to practice these things, they're just not as effective. So if you're going to be the most effective in retraining your brain to understand pain or to calm your nervous system when you aren't very stressed. So that's why it comes back to doing this as part of your self-care on a daily basis, almost like brushing your teeth. You're going to commit to yourself that, okay, I'm going to just every night before I go to bed, I'm going to listen to that binaural beats. That's an easy way to get it into your life. Or, every day I've got to get outside, which is just great for you in general, exercise. So maybe you go take that walk in nature where you're outside. If you live in a place that's safe and, is nature. If you live in the middle of the city, it might not be, your answer, but certainly, doing all the other things, you can do something on a daily basis to, calm your nervous system.
Yeah, that's lovely. Thank you so much for this education, for these simple tools, for the reminder of the importance of daily practice, even when we're not stressed. Anything else you want to share before we wrap up today about how people can use the pain neuroscience research that we have now to improve their chronic pain?
I think we've talked about it, but just to recap, it's not exactly just about pain. It can be
Hmm.
back about sleeping, because if you can sleep better, you are going to control your pain better. If you have less stress, you're going to control your pain better. Like you mentioned before, if you are taking control of your deep breathing, you're also going to set your heart up for being able to handle stress better. So if we're starting with a higher heart rate and then stress comes along, then we're going to have a really high heart rate, and then we're going to have lots more problems. So being able to just manage yourself on a daily basis, we are evolving creatures. We aren't that 6-year-old girl anymore. Our body's got a couple more scars on it, and our hearts are different. That we're in our 50s, so stress will show up. We aren't as resilient, right? So we can't expect our teeth to just clean themselves, and we can't expect our nervous system just to take care of itself either. So we just do need to, again, take care of it on a daily basis.
Yeah, and really building that resilience. And you're right, it affects our cardiovascular health as well, which is so important in the 40s, 50s, and beyond. And for women especially, since we are at higher risk of arrhythmias, and so the more peaceful our resting state heart rate is, the better. So I love all of these tools and how wide-reaching they are. Thank you so much for sharing this. Thank you so much for sharing this research and the work that you do. And everyone, I recommend you go visit Sally and her team at Women in Harmony. Where can we find you, Sally?
Yes, at womeninharmony.com. So we are happy to have you visit our website. We've got some tips there. We also are on Facebook. So we have a Facebook group. So if you're just looking for some support for women who are aging, that you can certainly join our group. And we try to send out, motivational Mondays and other tips for just dealing with life.
Absolutely. I'm sure that's well needed. I'm sure it's a very popular group for sure. Thank you so much, Sally, for being here. And thank you, everyone. We'll see you next week.